as we mentioned at the top, not just European nations. Also, China, as Donald Trump making that request of China and other countries to help in the fight to protect tankers and keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Well, Olvier Farry from our International Affairs Desk is with me here on set now. I mean, Oliver, why would Trump make this request of China? I mean, China, not only an adversary to some extent anyway of the US, but also an ally of Iran.
Well, if I may be permitted a mangled metaphor, any port in a storm, because Donald Trump will probably figure why not. While the US president is not under any illusion as to China being an adversary, he also believes he has a special relationship with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now, that might be wishful thinking, but Trump would presumably be motivated by several factors, one being China's self-interest, just as Dave was saying there about European countries being dependent upon oil deliveries from the Strait of Hormuz. The same goes for China. He may also be factoring in China's relationship with Iran, thinking perhaps fancifully again that Tehran would be reluctant to open fire on a Chinese warship. All in all, this is indicative of Trump's own transactional worldview, where anything can be bought and sold. And he may feel that he has something to offer Beijing, particularly in these continuing trade talks. That he might possibly offer to slash tariffs or so on. He would certainly expect Beijing to ask for something in return. Now, of course, it looks like his visit to Beijing at the end of the month will not now go ahead, though his Trade Secretary, Scott Bessent, says that that's actually because of the war rather than any particular falling out with Beijing.
What about from Beijing's side then? Is there any likelihood Beijing might agree to help Trump?
I would say close to zero, for much the same reason as the US's NATO allies won't, or probably won't, because Beijing will view it as a Washington's self-inflicted problem to deal with themselves. There's also the fact that China is on far friendlier terms with Iran than any of those countries, even if, as I will come to in a minute, relations between Tehran and Beijing aren't quite as tight as is popularly imagined. There's also the fact that in the past few weeks have shown that China is actually less exposed by the energy crisis than was initially supposed. It has strategic oil reserves it can dip into, and we can also see in this article that there's a sustained policy over 20 years. This is an article in the energy blog Latitude Media, which says that in 2024, clean energy met 84% of China's electricity needs. And of course, it is a world leader in electric vehicles as well. And this article says that it's a sustained policy of 20 years that has been managed by Beijing because, unlike the whiplash policy of alternating governments in Washington, it has managed to actually build that up over those decades. So there's little reason to think that China, at least for now, would think there's any urgency to act.
Oliver, you know the region well. You were our correspondent in Hong Kong just a few years ago. I mean, what sort of outcome do you think Beijing is hoping for from this war?
One that is above all favourable to China, and that is not necessarily either side winning. It's more generally a restoration of stability, which is something that Chinese governments value above everything else, particularly in foreign relations. And China does not want this war, just as most countries in the world did not want it, regardless of whether they're democracies or otherwise. Could it live with the fall of the Iranian regime? It possibly might, if it did not bring complete turmoil. This article published earlier in the war by Yun Sun, who's a Chinese-American analyst, she says that China won't help Iran because it cares more about the oil than it cares about the regime. Now, there has been some help forthcoming from Beijing, such as anti-stealth radar systems that help Iran detect enemy planes. China's particularly interested in giving these to Iran because it actually operates as a lifetime laboratory for their own possible later military uses. But there's no significant armaments or logistical support coming from China. There's also good reason for this. Iran is viewed as just too volatile and unstable a partner in the Middle East for China to really depend upon. And China has actually drawn back from an awful lot of its trade in recent years. In 2021, it pledged $400 billion in future investments in Iran, but very little of that has materialized. And in fact, last year, bilateral trade between the two countries fell 25%. So while China is definitely keeping Iran on side, it's involved in an awful lot of the regional blocs that China is involved in that are very much opposed to the West. Given it's not really going all in on investments, given that there are a lot of other countries in the so-called global south that are a lot less volatile and a lot less exposed to risk than Iran.